Friday, August 14th, NBA Now, episode, I don't know, 7 or 8. Y'all got to catch up, man. Keep catching up, man. I'm dropping the stuff every other day. I'm keeping up with the title, NBA Now. So we're headed into the playoffs. We've got the play-in game. You can believe I'll have that breakdown Sunday, right? The game is Saturday afternoon. Now, there could be 2 games. If there's 2, I'll cover 2. If there's 1, I'll cover 1. But this video in this podcast is giving you my round 1 predictions quickly, efficiently. The first thing, though, that I wanted to address was the news that they are going to start letting players' family and friends enter the bubble. And I was kind of astonished to hear that, honestly. I guess I knew that in the beginning. That was what they negotiated, but it didn't quite register until now that it's going to start to happen. And it just seems like it's not worth it. Now, here I am sitting in the comfort of my home with my family, right? And I'm saying it's not worth it. And so the players are probably like, man, forget that. I need my family with me. I understand that, but it just seems like they're taking a huge risk at compromising this bubble that's proven to work. And so I'm a little wary of that. Never mind once they're in the bubble, let's say everybody clears and they get in, we could see some spicy things like, like if you got a player's wife or girlfriend or fiance is what you're going to hear a lot, walking around at the pool, right? You think Jimmy Butler ain't going to break his neck and say something wild to somebody's girl if that's the case. So I don't know, maybe it'll spice things up. As long as the bubble is safe and the games keep happening, I understand that, emotional support and people need their families. I just think they're introducing the possibility of a ton of problems, and I'm a little nervous about it, but it is what it is. I'm going to try to make things quick and efficient here with these predictions. I'll start in the East with the 1-8 matchup, Milwaukee in Orlando. It feels like Orlando has become perennial appetizers for the top of the Eastern Conference, right? They're always somehow in that 8th seed, and they never put up much of a fight. And I don't think this year will be any different. Obviously, they're missing Jonathan Isaac, who would have been the guy that probably would have put on Giannis, right? Not that he would have stopped him, but he would have, he's a solid defender. He's a big body, right? But ultimately, Orlando just doesn't have enough perimeter shooting to even make this series interesting. I'd be surprised if they won 1 game. Moving into the offseason, they got to do something. They're too front court heavy. Is Mo Bamba going to be a player or what? Is Aaron Gordon? Is Aaron Gordon what he is? Is he what he is? He's not going to take another step that everybody's waiting for, at least not in Orlando. And for Milwaukee, this is the matchup you want, right? This is a matchup where ideally you get out of there in 4 games and you don't use up too much energy. So I see that being an easy sweep for the number 1 seed in the East, the Bucks. The number 2 seed, Toronto Raptors versus the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, you ever heard the phrase, don't ever fight a homeless man, right? Because he's got nothing to lose. It makes him dangerous. And that's kind of what it feels like with the Brooklyn Nets, right? They're just playing with house money. They've got their 2 superstars back in Brooklyn, and this is just kind of for fun. But as you've seen in this bubble, they've been extremely scrappy, right? Karis LeVert last night almost sent Portland packing. I don't know why he didn't go to the cup, right? He took that step back. But you want to talk about a player with an offbeat rhythm. Karis LeVert, not only is he super long and he has good touch, but everything he does is offbeat. And it's very difficult to defend irky-jerky. He's about as irky-jerky a player I've seen in the last decade. Maybe someone can throw out another guy, right? But he's up there. And they're going to let it fly. They're playing free, loose, aggressive. A lot of guys, you know what they're playing? They're playing like they've got a giant chip on their shoulder that may have been placed there by their leaders, their superstars, and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. It feels like they're out to prove to those dudes like, hey, man, we ain't no pushover. We ain't no joke. We were a team before you were here. Y'all ain't even done nothing. So Brooklyn's a little spooky if I'm Toronto, just because, again, of their mentality, the looseness they're playing with. And then if Tyler Johnson is going to play out of his mind like we saw the other night, they could get a game, maybe even 2. Speaking of homelessness, though, Tyler Johnson, like, is he, I don't want to get inappropriate here, but is he mixed? Is he light-skinned? Because it kind of seems like the hair's is the hair curly, or is it just like dirty and it's making it curl and he's got that tint to him? He plays rugged. I don't mean to con him. I'm just asking. I'm asking for a friend. But the point is they got a lot of fearless, aggressive dudes out to prove something. Obviously, I'm choosing Toronto to get out of this, but I don't think they'll sweep them. I think Brooklyn will get one. It'll be a 5-game series. 6th game if Tyler Johnson and these dudes, some of these guys were just letting it. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, right? Is he Brazilian? But if they're going to be banging threes down, you never know. You never know. But obviously Toronto is the superior team. It should be a good tune-up for them because it's going to force them to play hard. They're not going to be able to cruise. And I think Nick Nurse likes that. I'll take Toronto in 5. Number 3, Boston Celtics versus the 76ers. And this is a matchup I think that everybody's been anticipating here. Now, the storyline is that Ben Simmons is out of the bubble, knee surgery to clean up that dislocated kneecap or whatever you want to call it. Joel Embiid rolled his ankle last week, but, he's always chipped up. When is Embiid right? You know what I mean? But I do think that we're overlooking a little bit of the back end of the Sixers roster, some of the depth they have. And then it's ironic, Bill Simmons and his Boston Celtics, I think they're going to experience a little bit of that Ewing effect that he so infamously has created, right? Where they've lost Ben Simmons, and I think it's going to actually help them in a way. Obviously, you're missing one of the bigger, more versatile defenders in the league, and he's a guy you'd love to put on Tatum, right? But you're seeing Alec Burks, you're seeing Josh Richardson, you're seeing some of these other guys that have struggled throughout the year play better in Ben Simmons' absence. And I think you're going to see them continue to do that. They've got some pride there. And then obviously Joel Embiid, he may, specifically against this Celtics team where they're lacking size, Tice just doesn't stand a chance against him. We're probably going to see that kid Robinson in there. They're going to have to do something. And look, Embiid could just dominate this series, right? And give you 40 a game and carry them. And it would be just a coming out party in a way, like I am here truly as a dominant player. But we all know that's not going to happen. Like we just know it's not going to happen, right? Like he'll do it for a game, right? He'll do it for a game, 2 maybe, right? But I definitely don't think he could do it throughout a series. I don't think he has the mental stamina, and we know he doesn't have the physical stamina. Like, that's the thing. Like, you can talk all that stuff. You can be super talented. You can be the biggest guy, baddest guy on the floor. But do you have the mental stamina and physical stamina to carry a team through an entire series? And I'm definitely not willing to bet on Joel. I think he'll dominate for a game or two. You'll see a 40, maybe even a 50-point game, and he's going to get the Sixers a win or two. But ultimately, he's going to have some duds. He's going to wilt. He doesn't have that discipline and that dominance that we've all been wanting him to have, and you're going to see Boston get it done. I've got Boston in 6. Now, the 4-5 matchup, Miami and Indiana, that's a legit 4-5 matchup, and then you throw out home court advantage, obviously, and all of a sudden you're like, this could be interesting. Well, I don't think it's as close as maybe some people think it is. I think that ultimately Miami is going to punk Indiana. Like it's been a nice story, right? TJ Warren, Vic back in the lineup. It seems like they can't catch a break. Sabonis going out. Didn't they say Warren has plantar fasciitis now too? I don't like these injuries being released if the dude's playing. Keep it to yourselves until they're not playing anymore. And I'll talk more about that with another player here later. But here's what it's going to be. TJ Warren, they've been heavily relying on him to score. It's no secret, right? He's been the breakout player of this bubble. I know you could point to Booker, you could point to Dame. We already knew Booker and Dame were star players. TJ Warren has come virtually out of nowhere. He was like a 6-man, and now he is the go-to option for Indiana, right? And so they've become very reliant on his offense in this bubble, in this iteration of them with Sabonis out. And I think Jimmy Butler is just going to take it upon himself to shut down TJ Warren. And that's not an easy task. Like Warren's going to score. He is a scorer, but I think Butler, we know the smoke they've had in the past, and I look forward to them battling. And y'all know me. I'm not a huge Jimmy Butler fan, but I trust his will and his competitive spirit and his toughness to win that specific individual matchup. And I think that goes a long way. And then you just go down the line of the roster, and it's like, all right, Miles Turner or Bam. That Miami wins. They may not win in talent at each matchup, but they definitely win in toughness and competitive spirit, and that's the Miami culture. And so, Indiana's prideful, they're well coached, and they're not going to get swept, but I wouldn't be surprised if Miami took care of business in 5. The one caveat being is Victor Oladipo, we know what he is capable of. Is he ready to take more of an offensive load and get back to being who he was a season ago? If Vic shows up like the Vic that we know, prime Vic, he's looked decent, he's looked all right. Offensively, he doesn't have that same confidence. But if he finds it in the series, I think that's the only way that Indiana could extend this and make it any longer. But in somewhat of a surprising outcome, I've got the Heat taking care of business in 5 on the back of Jimmy Butler. Speaking of Jimmy Butler, I think the best thing that I've seen in 2020 was Jimmy Butler trucking Chris Paul under the hoop and giving him a dose of his own medicine. Like, I watched that 5 times. That was my favorite thing. And the backstory was Chris Paul threw a ball at Duncan Robinson and was being his typical scrappy, kind of bitchy self to everybody on the court. And Jimmy was like, okay, bet. And so Chris Paul rotates over under the basket, and Jimmy just drops the shoulder on him and sends him under the basket, sliding on the baseline. And you could see Chris Paul hunched over, and you could tell it hurt him. Like, he was like, he was trying to show that he wasn't hurt. Probably got it right in the chest or solar plex. But at the same time, Chris knew, like, all right, bet. Like, fair game. Like, that's something I would have done. Like, it was like recognized game from 2 of the more scrappy players in the league, and it brought a smile to my face. Moving over to the Western Conference, first round. Look, I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's a Lakers-Blazers first round matchup. Again, I'm going to have the play-in series breakdowns on my Patreon this weekend. Go check that out. Seeing it as though the Portland only needs to win 1 and Memphis needs to win 2, from how I understand it, I'm going to go ahead and take Portland. That's if it was a one-off, I'm not so sure, considering what Portland's been through this week, right? But since they have that built-in advantage, I'm going to go ahead and operate under the assumption that we are going to get this Portland-Lakers first-round matchup. And I know it was like just a week ago, I put out a video like, look out, Lakers, y'all in trouble. Portland, here they come, right? But things change. And this last week of basketball that we've watched from the Blazers, it's exposed them a little bit, and frankly, it's taken too much of their battery. It feels like Portland has kind of blown their wad just to get into the dance. And each game, it seemed like they needed to rely on Dame more and more. And as amazing as it is, like, at some point, the well's going to run dry. Like, he is a human being. He does bleed, right? You know what I mean? And then you combine the fact that somehow CJ got his back broke in the bubble. Nah, look, man, it is what it is. I'm only reporting it. CJ got his back broke in the bubble somehow. And, clearly he is lumbering out there. He is. I don't like it being put out there until it's said and done. Like, if CJ is going to push through, and I think it can be a little misleading. Like, if you go and take an x-ray of a lot of athletes' back, a lot of them probably have some like minor funky break in their back. It's the terminology of it. Like, does CJ need back surgery? Like, what exactly is going on? But anyway, it just kind of sounds like an excuse for why he's lumbering. And look, I'm not doubting he has a back problem, but if you're going to play through it, don't talk about it, because it helps the opponent, right? And then I think the media, as we scrutinize it, it doesn't help the player. So I thought that was a mistake to let that out. I don't know exactly who did, but clearly he's not fully himself. Right? And so Dame has had to kind of shoulder more of the load offensively. And then also watching their defense, like watching that Brooklyn game, you're seeing Tyler Johnson go off, right? You're seeing guys that are not great offensive players go off against Portland in this back and forth. And it kind of leads me to believe that the others for the Lakers are going to get off in this series. The Danny Greens, the Kentavious Caldwell-Popes, the Carusos. We've seen them struggle in their offense. It's been no secret, but you consider Portland's defense, and it seems like it's a recipe for the Lakers role players to get into rhythm offensively. Not to mention, they just don't have a body to put on LeBron, right? And so I think it'll be a fun series, but if Portland, again, they've used too much of their battery to get in, and then if That's the level of defense we're going to see. You have to have CJ and Dame out there from their backcourt. It's gonna allow the Lakers others to get going, and I think the Lakers get it done in 6. Clippers, Mavericks, the 2 and 7 seed. The Mavericks are a fun team. They're not just fun, they're dangerous, right? Because they're one of those teams, much like Houston, where if they get hot from 3, it really doesn't matter who you're playing. You could be playing the 17 Warriors or the 96 Bulls. If Hardaway Jr. and Kleba and all these guys are railing threes like they seem to get hot, right? It really doesn't matter. They could beat you. And I think we're going to see at least one of those games. And then I also think that one of the Clippers' weaknesses is they're a little bit arrogant. I had said the other day, it kind of reminds me of the KD version of the Warriors. Not the first year, right? But the second year, where they got a little bit arrogant. They got a little bit complacent. The difference being we know the hardware that the Warriors had, right? There was kind of a reason for it. Well, the Clippers, outside of Kawhi, haven't won anything, but they still kind of have that attitude. And I think we're going to see a game or two where they kind of play down to the Mavericks or maybe not take them as serious as they should. And so Dallas will get at least 2 games, I think, in this series. It'll be a 6-game series. I think the thing to keep an eye out also for the Clippers is Montrezl Harrell. What's good, right? Now, is he staying in shape? What's happening? You have to think a guy that plays like Trez with that type of motor, it's going to take him at least a series to get his energy back, right? He could be in shape, but is he in basketball shape? And again, the way how energetic and how high of a motor he plays at, it's going to take him some time to get back up to game speed. So he may not be effective at all in this series, but all that being said, the Clippers are the superior talent and they're going to make life very difficult for Luka. I think that's the thing I'm most excited to see is to not only see Luka in a playoff atmosphere, but also see how he's going to deal with, 2 of the best wing defenders we've seen in this era. And it's going to be tough for him. And I want to see how he deals with this burden because it's not going to be easy. Is he going to pack it in? Is he going to push through? I don't know yet. I want to see. These answers need to, they're not going to win the series, but let's see how Luka and KP handle things. How much fight do they have in them, or are they going to roll over? I don't think they're going to roll over. I think they're going to keep letting it fly. They'll get 2, Clippers in 6. Denver in Utah, the 3-6 seed. Look, losing Bojan was just, I feel bad for the Jazz fans. And it was just, that hurt. That hurt, right? He was like the guy that they're, I know Conley, I guess, is the new acquisition, but it was Bogdanović that I think a lot of Jazz fans felt like that was going to be the difference this year. His spacing, his shooting, and he's been really good for them all year. And now, he's out with the surgery. You wonder if he could have waited until after the bubble. I don't know. I don't know the details of it. All I know is they're missing him gravely. Now, I know Conley has looked better in the bubble. He's looked more like himself, right? And I think the equalizer in this series is Will Barton and Gary Harris have yet to play for the Nuggets. Needless to say, that depletes their backcourt and their wings and their depth. As exciting as Michael Porter Jr. is, all of a sudden, not only have we got to see Michael Porter Jr., Mike Malone and the Nuggets are somewhat reliant upon him considering the injuries to Barton and Harris, right? He's not only part of the rotation, he is a scoring option for them, right? And as impressive as Michael Porter Jr. has been, he has very little experience, and now you're going to throw him into his first playoff series. And so I would imagine he's going to have a dud or two, right? He's going to have a game or two where it's just like, oh, this is your first playoff experience. But then I started to think about it, and I'm like, well, maybe not, because this is not a normal playoff experience. There's no road games. There's no crowd. And then you also consider the fact that Porter Jr. seems to be towing that very fine line between cockiness and confidence. And it's players like that tend to rise to the occasion in big games. And so maybe he just has that built-in DNA because they're going to need him. What I had just spoken about with Montrezl Harrell, you could probably say the same thing with a Will Barton, right? And a Gary Harris. Those are athletic energy guys, right? And so they're not as skill-based players. It's going to take them longer to get up to speed, is my point. And so if they don't have them, that's, I think, the great hope for Utah in this series. That being said, the Jokic-Gobert matchup is a problem because the Joker can pull Gobert away from the rim. He can operate at the high post, and if he wants to, he can shoot the three ball, and that pulls Gobert away. I like Denver's role players better. I'm going to call Millsap a role player at this point, but Jeremy Grant's been tremendous, right? And their length and their size. Jamal Murray is back. Jamal Murray looks like he's put on 20 pounds. Has Jokic given Jamal Murray his weight? He looks like he carries it well, right? But I was like, damn, Jamal Murray, he's put on some pounds, and he can't be in the greatest shape. So the path for Utah making this a series is their backcourt. Can Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, and Jordan Clarkson get the best of a heavy Jamal Murray and a depleted backcourt in Denver? Because I don't think they can win the front court matchup. I got Denver in 6. All right, and the final matchup, the 4-5 matchup in the Western Conference, the Thunder and the Houston Rockets. This is supposed to be the spiciest first-round matchup, right? Chris Paul scorned against Houston, Westbrook against the team he was raised with, right? This would have been a great series outside of the bubble where they had to travel to each other's arenas, right? But now the news that Westbrook is going to miss some time with the right quad really dampens it to me. I don't, to be honest with you, I think OKC probably makes this a quick series if Russ can't go. I really do. I think that watching this young Thunder team, they've taken on the personality of Chris Paul. They're young, they're long, they're athletic, and they're chippy, right? They got a little bit of an attitude with them. What does Houston do with Steven Adams? Are they able to play him off the floor without Russ? I don't know. And I think that, like, again, a very motivated Chris Paul with a fleet of young soldiers behind him. If they don't have Russ, again, I think it'll be a five-game series. Now, if Westbrook, like, usually a normal player, right, you say, all right, he has a quad strain that's bad enough where he's got to sit out, and you say, all right, he's not going to be effective for this playoff series. But we all know Westbrook is an alien in a lot of ways. How many times has he gotten his knee cleaned up and he comes back like it's never happened? So I'm not ruling him out exactly, but I'm just going by the reports. But if Westbrook can play, I think this is not only the spiciest first round series, but probably the longest. We'll probably see a 6-7 game series here. So I can't call it with Russ up in the air. I'm just hoping for health, and we get to see these guys go at it, right? All right, well, those are my quick first-round predictions. I didn't want to go too deep into it. I think as the playoffs go on and we get into the second round and we get into some more intriguing and competitive matchups, I'll do, maybe if I have time, more in-depth breakdowns of some of these matchups moving forward in the playoffs. Now, I wanted to address one thing about that Steph versus Dame video earlier this week. I got quite a bit of pushback, not surprising, as far as the Warrior fans go, and, you know, that's cool. That's cool. That's what it was designed to do. But a lot of people wanted to question the finishing at the rim and pointed to Steph actually shooting a higher percentage at the rim than Dame. And that's true. And in his MVP years specifically, he was damn good at it, right? But not all shots are created equal, right? And I think that Steph's at the rim percentage is a little misleading because of the space that the Warriors play in and his shot selection. Steph really only goes to the rim when he's open. Like, he's not going in there and challenging bigs and trying to get to the rim when it's congested. And in a way, you could argue, well, that's good. That's smart, right? And that's something that I should have brought up, was shot selection. And that's somewhere else where Steph really is superior to Dame in my view. Now, Dame, you saw him last night again, pulling up literally from the logo. And there's a time and a place for that. And hey, he made it. It's hard to argue with. But I think Steph has superior shot selection overall. But I also point to his percentage in the paint. Like, look, there's no way, like, if they're both driving a crowded paint, Steph's as good at finishing in crowds and through contact as Dame. That's what I meant. But anyway, I'll leave that there. I know it's a trigger point for a lot of y'all. Last thing I wanted to talk about, Giannis suspended for headbutting Mo Wagner. It wasn't a smart thing from Giannis, needless to say, but I'll tell you why. I'll go a little deeper into it. Beyond just the one game suspension, you say, all right, who cares? He wasn't going to play in that game anyway. That's fine. And he's kind of letting people know, don't mess with me. I'm about this or whatever. Wrong. Right? As funny as it was to watch, right? It was a mistake by Giannis because you don't think Kyle Lowry or Jimmy Butler or Marcus Smart doesn't see that and think, hey, come a playoff matchup with Giannis, I'm going to try to bait him to do the same damn thing. I'm going to try and get him not only just thrown out of that game, but suspended for more of the series. And so you're showing your opponents and your rivals, hey, I could get baited into being thrown out of a game. And I will say this, look, people aren't going to maybe want to hear this. I'm just here to explain the culture to you. But there is also something about a white boy getting in your face as a brother, like, hey, I can't allow this. It's like a little extra. It sometimes I think it makes a black man, it makes a brother get a little more aggressive than maybe they normally would because they don't want to hear it from others. Like, hey, you let Mo Wagner get in your face? You let this white boy get in your face? Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm telling you that's the reality of the culture. And so maybe that had a little bit to do with it, but ultimately you can't show that chink in the armor, Giannis, because you're going to get baited, and hopefully you have more self-control when everything is on the line. All right, that's it for me today, y'all. NBA Now. I'm out.
I've been winning so long, it's like